Breaking news at this hour. Iowa football landing a massive fish from the transfer portal in Ohio State transfer wide receiver KALEB Brown, a much-needed addition to a depleted wide receiver group. We'll talk about the implications in just a second and what KALEB brings to this wide receiver room. But first, have you ever Googled your own name and found your personal information exposed on some big-time public listing site? Well, data brokers and people everywhere are making a fortune exposing your personal information, selling it to spammers, robocallers, and others. That's why I'm excited to tell you about our partner for today's video, Aura. Aura can identify data brokers exposing your personal information and submit opt-out requests in your behalf. And they're legally obligated, these individuals are legally obligated to comply with these opt-out requests, but they make it very difficult to opt out. So let Aura take care of it for you. Again, use this link for a free 2-week trial, folks. Just try the product out. You'll love it. www.aura.com/Hawkeyes. That's www.aura.com/Hawkeyes. Include that /Hawkeyes to sign up through us here from the Hawkeye of the Storm. Everything is super easy as far as signing up. You won't need to download a bunch of apps. It's available at a great low rate as well. Try it for free today with this link. Thank you to Aura for sponsoring our video and keeping people's information safe everywhere. So the big news on this Thursday evening, and boy, it is massive. Iowa football landing a commitment from Ohio State transfer KALEB Brown. If you're not familiar with that name, KALEB was recruited by Iowa out of high school, but he was a big fish. And as we all know, Iowa has had a hard time landing the big fish at wide receiver. They've had some swings, they've had some misses. You're looking about Oliver Martin. They pushed for him out of high school. He's a local kid, went to a high school right there in Iowa City, ends up going to Michigan, transfers into Iowa, doesn't work out. He ends up going to Nebraska. Iowa's had some nice finds. Brandon Smith was a nice find out of Mississippi several years back. The development maybe wasn't there fully. And as of late, they've had the Charlie Jones saga. A kid that was underutilized. He ends up putting up massive numbers at Purdue, albeit in a totally different style of offense. But the point being, Iowa has struggled to get marquee wide receivers. And Ohio State is the epitome of a wide receiver school, of wide receiver U. Obviously, you just go down recently, Jackson Smith and Jigma, Marvin Harrison Jr., Maurice Fleming is in line to break out this next season. They are loaded, and they consistently put top-end talent in the NFL. This is a bit surprising, I think, to some people that expected him to take extra visits. I can tell you it did sound like, from what I was told, KALEB was planning on taking at least 2 more visits, and the staff convinced him to commit, which is massive. He visited Iowa City on Wednesday. The visit went really, really well from what I was told. And yes, I think it's fair to say NIL was a factor in all this, but the point being, Iowa landed someone they absolutely needed. This wide receiver group, with all due respect to the guys that are on scholarship, and they've got some talent, Nico Ragaini, I should say, Seth Anderson, Deontay Vines, even Jacob Bostic. They've dealt with injuries. Deontay Vines barely played half a season last year. You know, you look at Nico Ragaini, he's a solid receiver. I think he and KALEB Brown will complement each other well, but he's not a break the top off the defense type of kid. I know in a recent discussion with Coach Don Patterson on this show, he talked about the need to find at least one receiver that could take the top off of a defense. And then everybody else is inexperienced. They got 3 freshmen coming in this summer. KALEB is inexperienced. He played in just 4 games last year at Ohio State. But remember, he was being coached up by one of the best wide receiver coaches, I think, in the country in Brian Hartline, and obviously a very successful NFL player in Brian Hartline. And again, a university that has a track record under Ryan Day of producing marquee talent at this position. I think it's fair to say Cade McNamara had to have a significant effect here. If Iowa was still operating with the QB room it had last season, would KALEB Brown be coming here? Probably not. KALEB just entered the portal a few days ago. Iowa obviously was on it. I commend Kirk Ferentz, Tyler Barnes, Brian Ferentz, Kelton Copeland, and the staff for doing that. We've talked about the benefit of having the Swarm Collective involved now with being able to give recruits an idea of what they can make NIL-wise once they get to school. So this is just a massive, massive get for Iowa. Let me give you a few notes from what I've seen on tape. Again, KALEB Brown was a top 100 kid last year, according to almost every site I looked up. If you look at Ohio State's website, he just enrolled last summer. So this was his first spring. Why he entered the portal, I guess we can't say For sure. Would I be shocked if Cade McNamara had had conversations with him? No. And honestly, right now, that's the day and age we live in college football. Is it tampering? Not really. If it's not a coach, if it's not a recruiting staff member that's making that contact, it's not really tampering. Cade McNamara has a right to talk to whoever he wants to talk to. So maybe that had an effect. Maybe that had a pull. But my guess is Caleb Brown looked at the guys in front of him, like Marvin Harrison Jr., Maurice Fleming, etc., and said, look, I'm probably not going to play again much this season, even though he was a highly touted prospect out of high school. He is a Chicago kid, and he was considered a top 100 player overall. Ohio State, their website, reporting him at number 62 overall as a senior. He was the second-ranked player in all of Illinois. Think about that for a second. The second best player in the state of Illinois and the nation's 8th best wide receiver. Again, you'll see some different numbers, some different metrics if you look up his recruiting profiles on Rivals or 247 or whatever the case may be. He is somewhat of an undersized guy at 5'10", 5'11". He's listed on the Ohio State website just under 200 pounds. I've already heard some comparisons to Tyrone Tracy. I think Caleb's got a little bit more from an athletics standpoint than maybe a Tyrone did. And that's reflected in his recruitment and the schools that went after him. And, of course, eventually signing with Ohio State. He's got deceptive speed. I watch him on film. His speed, although it's not like out of this world speed, he ran a 10.8 100-meter time his freshman year of high school. He actually regressed a tiny bit later in high school, according to the numbers that I found. But he's around that 11 mark in his 100-meter time. And you watch him on tape, he kind of reminds me of another Caleb for Iowa, and that's Caleb Johnson. He doesn't have the size or the stride that Caleb Johnson has, but you watch Caleb Brown on tape, he does have that deceptive speed where it doesn't look like he's running real fast, but all of a sudden he's outrun everybody, and I think that's what you have with both Caleb Johnson and Caleb Brown. So it should be a fascinating storyline. He played a lot of tailback in high school. He fits into what Iowa wants as far as motion. You think about how Iowa tried to utilize Tyrone Tracy, even Amir Smith-Marset and Charlie Jones at times, and they've done the same with Nico Reganey. I think Caleb Brown fits that mold better than maybe any of those receivers did. So that's a positive. Again, whether you like how Brian Ferentz and this offense operates, the most success they've had, I think maybe back to 2017 against Ohio State, or maybe even more specifically 2019 against USC, sending guys in motion, jet sweeps. Again, they have to be timed correctly. I don't care who's running back there, but I think Caleb Brown will be a guy who Iowa will certainly utilize with that type of action. He's not afraid of contact, shows the ability to put his foot in the ground, change direction, yards after catch, yards after contact, all really positive. And again, he's undersized, but frankly, who cares? You look at some of the best receivers in the NFL now, Tyreek Hill comes to mind. I know Don Patterson has talked about how I think size at times, he at least believes, Don believes that size is overhyped and there's way too much importance placed on hand size and height at that position. And Iowa has looked for prototypical X receivers. They've got some tall guys coming in like Jarrett Bowie and Jacob Bostic, who's a sophomore this year, a redshirt freshman, and of course Dayton Howard from Kansas City. But Caleb gives them something they desperately need, and that is athleticism, versatility, and the ability to take the top off of a defense. Congratulations. Massive get for Iowa, folks. We may jump on a live show, whether it be tonight or in the next couple of nights. Stay tuned to the channel. If you don't have notifications turned on, we're going to do a call-in show about this news and about where Iowa stands with the transfer portal. So hit that like button, folks. Tell me what you think about Caleb Brown committing to Iowa. Tell me in the comments below. Be sure to click on the Aura link. Sign up for that free trial. And, of course, we'll talk to you next time. Turn notifications on because we'll be going live here soon. I'm Corey Brada from the Hawkeye of the Storm.